Peace be upon you. So, when I was pretty young, I used to love to learn. I used to love to read books and watch documentaries and just spend hours in the library. And around the time of junior high, all of a sudden it's like life kind of takes a 180, and everything just seems so meaningless. Like you'd go to school and you'd sit through all this class, and they would just fill you with all this kind of information, and you'd go home, take a nap, do some homework, eat dinner, do some more homework, and repeat. And I can say, between like about seventh grade to sophomore year of high school, this was just life, and it seemed so dull, so monotonous, and so just like uneventful. And I remember when I was in my junior year of high school, everyone started studying for SATs, thinking about college, and around the same time, all of a sudden, the class load I had got a lot more strenuous, taking chemistry and different more advanced forms of physics and things that were in actually a literature class I recall very specifically that really kind of caused me to think and to reassess. And at the same time, after school, going to SAT prep classes and ACT, and it was just all of a sudden you went from just complete monotony to really being pushed. And it was interesting. I remember the junior year going through all that and getting to the point where I finished my SATs, finished my ACTs, finished my last final, and coming home and thinking, now what? Like, you spent all this time feeling like a zombie, and then all of a sudden you reach these levels of productivity where you're going to the library and really like learning for more so than just in the sense of absorbing information. And I didn't know what to do with myself, and I was thinking, well, what did I used to do? Well, I'd come home and I'd turn on the TV and lay in my bed and just kind of like fall asleep. So I turn on the TV, and Full House is on. Great children's show. And I'm laying there, and then all of a sudden I wake up, and the phone is ringing, and this epiphany hits me, and it was life changing, and it was so simple. And the whole idea was this: is that you don't know you're sleeping until you wake up. And I spent so many years just in this repeated motion of going to school, doing the bare minimum to kind of get by, and then going home and just filling my head with nonsense of TV, eating, and sleep. And then all of a sudden, when I'm basically forced into this uncomfortable situation, this enlightening moment happens where I realize that the last 4+ years of my life I was just sleeping, and it was life changing in that regards, because all of a sudden I realized that there was more to life than just going through the motions, and it was such a blessing to be able to have this experience at such a young age. And you think about how many people they're into their 30s, 40s, 50s, and all of a sudden they realize that they're on autopilot, that they didn't have the opportunity to stop and reflect and think conscientiously of what it is they're doing. And it's such a blessing to take that in consideration and think, how can we tell that that we're not sleeping, metaphorically through life, that we're really present in the moment and we're absorbing everything that's happening in our lives. And the thing is, God is trying to teach us a lesson every single day of our lives. There's a lesson plan, there's a curriculum. And we can either decide to be active participants, similar to the kid who sits in front of the class, is asking questions, and is absorbing the information, or we can choose to be passive, very similar to the individual who's sitting in the back of the class, just sleeping through and getting by. And it's a real waste when you think about it, is each day that we're not present, each day that we're not taking heed, taking notice, being attentive to the message that God is trying to teach us, we're losing out on that information. We're losing out on that ability to grow. It's kind of like you miss out on days or weeks or years of going to the gym, and then all of a sudden you have to endure physical activity, and it's very cumbersome. And God gives us the example that when we're sleeping, I mean, literally an infinite amount of time can go by and we'd be completely oblivious to it. In 2259, we read the examples as consider the one who passed by the ghost town and wondered, how can God revive this after it had died? God then put him to death for 100 years, then resurrected him. He said, how long have you stayed here? He said, I have been here a day or part of a day. He said, no, you have been here 100 years. Yet look at your food and drink. They did not spoil. Look at your donkey. We thus render you a lesson for the people. Now note how we construct the bones, then cover them with flesh. When he realized what had happened, he said, now I know that God is omnipotent. And, we see an example, this man sleeping for 100 years and has absolutely no clue of how much time has passed by. And another example is with the sleepers of Ephesus in chapter 18, verse 19. It says, when we resurrected them, they asked each other, how long have you been here? We have been here one day or part of a day, they answered. Your Lord knows best how long you have stayed here. So let us send one of us with this money to the city. Let him fetch the cleanest food and buy some for us. Let him keep a low profile and attract no attention. And between these two incidents, we have someone who slept for 100 years, and then the sleepers of Ephesus who slept for 300 years. And during that time, in essence, it's a whole lot of time's gone by, and it seemed like nothing. And it's the same thing when we are in this life and we're not actively participating. We're not treasuring these moments to really thank God, be appreciative, to be tentative to what God is trying to teach us through our day-to-day lessons. It's as if the time's gone by and it means absolutely nothing to us. Other verses in the Quran talks about when people are resurrected on the day of judgment, and they're asked, how long have you been here? And some people say a couple days or part of a day. And that's what it's going to appear like, because the only thing that's going to really matter in the hereafter is what did we do to basically nurture our spiritual selves? What did we do to nurture our souls? And how we nurture our souls is by pleasing God. And those are the only moments that are really going to count. Everything else, in essence, ends up being a form of just, entertainment or vanity, but it's not substantial. And what is substantial is these moments that we take to thank God, to remember God, to do our contact prayers, to give to charity, to do, righteous work. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing with our time? And how can we tell if we are metaphorically speaking? When we're actually sleeping, there are certain indicators that tell us, oh, you're asleep. And for instance, if you're questioning in your dream if you're actually sleeping or awake, one of the indicators might be that, hey, the laws of physics aren't applying. Like all of a sudden you can fly or, be in the bottom of the ocean and you don't need air. It's probably an indication that, you're sleeping. Or if, there is no real time lapse, that all of a sudden things are, one time you're on the top of a rooftop, then you're on a pirate ship, and then, you're in a cave or whatever, and there is no continuity. It's probably a sign that you're sleeping. But how can we tell in our real lives that if we're really metaphorically sleeping? And one of the ways that we can tell is basically, assessing our goals and our intentions. And, we consider someone who can plan or basically predict the future and plan accordingly, very intelligent. We name buildings after them, and we read their books, and, we give them all kinds of honor and praise. And a good example of this is in 2008, during the whole subprime loan meltdown. John Paulson, he made $3.7 billion in 2007, and then another $2 billion in 2008. Because he predicted this accurately. That's more than $5,400 per minute, every minute for 2 years straight. And that's insane. But the thing is, people look at this and they say, wow, what an intelligent, bright individual. We should definitely take heed and listen to him, and what does he have to say? And the actuality is that this money he accumulated in this life, it's completely meaningless unless he uses it to do righteous work to grow his soul. Because at the end of the day, when he departs from this world, he's not going to take any of this with him. It's very similar to the parable in the Bible about the farmer who, he has so much grain that as opposed to, doing something righteous with it, he says, hey, why don't I just build a larger barn so I can store more of this grain? And that's the reality. It's like, having money in itself should not be our end goal. What we do with it, and I personally don't know what John Paulson is doing with his money, but the sheer aspect of accumulation should not be the end goal. The end goal is always, what can we do to please God? What can we do to earn more righteous works? because that's the only thing that's going to matter in this life and in the hereafter. And our entire purpose in this life is to determine if we choose to be with God or not. And where we end up with this decision has 100% to do with the righteous work we choose to do. That being said, I mean, we have to think, how are we planning accordingly? Most people, they'll spend, if they're young, they're students, they're going to spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day trying to accumulate knowledge, trying to, basically study for a test, for an exam, so they can, if they're in high school, so they can go to good university, and if they're a good university, so they can get a good job. But if our only intent is to gain knowledge for the sake of, doing well in school, then it's probably a good sign that we're sleeping, that we're metaphorically sleeping, because that shouldn't be our end goal. And if we don't have our priorities set accordingly, then we're going to basically get into this rat race in this mentality of just, always trying to, in essence, achieve what should just be the means, not the ends. While learning is a great virtue and making it to a good university is, it's a good achievement, it shouldn't be our end goal. It should be in the sense that we're trying to accumulate this knowledge, this wisdom, so we can grow spiritually, so we can grow in appreciation. So if our goal is to get a good job, which in itself is fine, that it shouldn't stop there. So how many people, they spend 8, 10, 12, however many hours a day working, in a job that they're strictly doing for the sake of being able to be promoted and make more money. And again, if that's our only intent, is to make money, to get a promotion, to exalt ourselves, then it's probably a sign that we're metaphorically sleeping, that we're not being active participants in life, that we're not really living life. And we should always be focused on what our end goal is. Our end goal for going to school, getting good grades, going to work, making a lot of money, should always be in the sense of to please God. If our intent is to go to school, is to get a good career so you can make lots of money, then it's probably, not a good sign. We have to continue forward with that reasoning, that, it doesn't stop there, because what would happen inevitably is you're going to get the good grades, you're going to get to a good university, but you're never going to be fulfilled. You're going to get that good job, you're going to spend hours working, you're going to get the promotion, yet you're going to be depressed, you're going to be upset, you're going to be lacking in meaning. And if you want to have true meaning in our lives, we have to do what God tells us, and that the only thing that's going to matter is what do we do for our souls? What are we doing to please God? What are we doing to grow in righteousness? Knowledge and money, these are means for our true goal. When we go to school and we're learning, we should be thinking, how's this going to benefit my soul? How's this going to make me more appreciative? How's this going to make me more productive? So God willing, I can make more money, so I can give more to charity, so I can do more righteous deeds and help out others. At the end of the day, we're here to serve, and that's how we're really going to get the fulfillment in our life. If God provides me with a tool, be it knowledge or money, I can choose it only to chase the materials of this life, then I'm not using the resources that God provided to me to gain anything for the hereafter. And the caveat to that is, if we basically use the resources that God gave us, be it the knowledge, the time, the money, for the hereafter, not only are we going to basically be happy and successful in the hereafter, we're going to be happy and successful in this life. So if learning is going to allow me to go to a good university so I can get a good job, so I can make more money, so I can do more righteous work to please God, then it's probably a sign that I'm actually awake. How many people can say that, their intention to make money, to get a good job, to go to a good university is to please God? The thing is, when we make God our priority, when the actions we do are to please God, we're always going to be satisfied. We're always going to be fulfilled. And, the way we do that, again, is by serving others. It's by doing righteous work, by giving to charity, by growing, spiritually, and being cognizant of the lessons that God is trying to teach us in our day-to-day lives. Everything, every interaction we have, every encounter we have, every conversation we have, every event that we take note of, there's something to learn there. There's something for us to grow from. And if we're only sitting there passively, we're going to miss out on those opportunities. And the irony is, when you have this mentality, inevitably you're going to get mocked and ridiculed. Some of you guys might be listening to this right now and mocking and ridiculing me, and that's fine. When this happens, we have to basically make sure that our priorities aren't to please others, they're strictly to please God. And God tells us, what happens to individuals who might, mock and ridicule these priorities. In 23, 109 through 115, it reads, "A group of my servants used to say, 'Our Lord, we have believed, so forgive us and shower us with your mercy.' Of all the merciful ones, you are the most merciful, but you mocked and ridiculed them to the extent that you forgot me. You used to laugh at them. I have rewarded them today in return for their steadfastness by making them the winners." He said, "How long have you lasted on earth? How many years?" They said, "We lasted a day or part of a day." Ask those who counted. He said, "In fact, you have stayed but a brief interim. If you only knew. Did you think that we created you in vain, that you were not to be returned to us?" When people find out that our true intentions are to please God, that the reason that we want to make money, the reason we want to learn is because we want to basically grow our souls, grow our understanding, and ultimately to please God. A lot of people, for them it's so foreign, so backwards that it's perplexing. And the irony is, God is telling us that these individuals, they're as if they're spending this entire life in a sleep state, in a coma state. They're chasing an illusion, no different than when they dream. And, in the dreams we have these events that are taking place and they seem so meaningful in the dream. Then you wake up and you realize, oh, it's completely fruitless. And, let's never get to a state that we're basically just going through the motions, that we're chasing these illusions. Let's always keep the focus 100% on God, 100% on growing our souls. And we'll never be disappointed. In chapter 30, verse 6 through 8, it says, "Preoccupation with the wrong life. So such is God's promise, and God never breaks his promise. But most people do not know. They care only about things of this world that are visible to them, while being totally oblivious to the hereafter. Why do they not reflect on themselves? God did not create the heavens and the earth and everything between them, except for a specific purpose and for a specific lifespan. However, most people with regard to meeting their Lord are disbelievers." And then again in 29:64 through 66, it reads, "Rearrange your priorities." It says, "This worldly life is no more than vanity and play, while the abode of the hereafter is the real life, if they only knew. When they ride on a ship, they implore God, devoting their prayers to him, but as soon as he saves them to the shore, they revert to idolatry. Let them disbelieve in what we have given them, and let them enjoy temporarily. They will surely find out." So God willing, let's keep our priorities straight. Let's motivate and encourage one another to always think about the bigger picture. Think about not just the vanities of this world, but ultimately, if God gives us wealth, gives us wisdom, gives us knowledge, what are we going to do with it? And then in addition, why is it that what is our true goal when we are trying to achieve wealth, knowledge, income, you name it. And if our intentions are 100% to please God, then we can guarantee that we're not sleeping, we are awake, and we are conscientious of the blessings that God has given us. God willing, we're going to end there. If you guys got any comments, questions, hit us up at QuranTalk@gmail.com. This was kind of a different format than the past, but recently just thought about that event of my life, and it was kind of meaningful, and just wanted to kind of see what verses reflect that for me, and inshallah is beneficial for anyone listening. Until next time, peace and God bless.